BAFTA Award nominees. The Brits like you. They're not an easy cracker, please.
well, no, but yeah, well, we had, Phantom Thread. They liked it. So.
That's true. So I actually want to start at the beginning with Licorice Peach, because it's so many different things at once. It's romantic and funny and dramatic and terrifying in some moments with Bradley Cooper. What was sort of the initial impetus or the spark of an idea that caused you to sit down and write this film?
Well, there was lots of different sparks over the course of many years. An idea of a young kid sort of pining after this girl that took pictures at school day. That was a good one, but I didn't have much else. But the reason for existence of the film is Alana. That many disparate ideas kind of coming together in my relationship, working with her and her sisters, kind of inspired me to it was like a magnet, I suppose, that you have all these different pieces and they sort of just come together. And it's inspiring when you're writing for somebody. It makes you can hear a voice, you can see a body move through space, and she's very easy to write for. I would really credit her for the existence of the film.
But she didn't even know you were writing this. You just sent her a script.
Well, listen, her story, which is so cockamamie and kind of half true. I can't quite remember at this point. But I will say in her defense, it is entirely possible that I had 100 imaginary conversations in my mind with her, telling her all about it, which probably never existed. And then I gave her the script, thinking we talked about it. That's true. That's probably true. I do remember saying to her, maybe probably in a kind of offhanded way, feeling like we're going to do something. I have this thing, and maybe I just couldn't contain myself, because I can remember writing it and feeling like there's a point when you want to share something with somebody, and then there's a point when you're not quite ready. And it's always good to have something a little, maybe not entirely cooked, but at least baked enough. And so I was excited. I was overexcited, and I wasn't really ready, but I was excited to let her know. And I might have whispered something in her ear once that she maybe didn't take seriously. And I can see it from her point of view too. But the flaw in her story, because she likes to tell this story like, oh, I had no idea, and it was just so incredible. And I was like, oh, what kind of friend would I be to send her a script that has her name Alana, like as the main character of the movie, and then just say like, well, what do you think of it? I'm gonna go find Kristen Stewart to play this part. That would be that's horseshit. I would never do that. It would be terrible.
Honestly, the craziest part of the story to me is that you write your scripts in Microsoft Word.
Why is that weird?
It's weird, right? It's not just me. Okay. Because there's a whole program and cult created around Final Draft that says this must be what you use.
That's a good reason not to.
Yeah.
I learned on a typewriter, so I still have. I guess my fingers and my mind are connected, and then I have to tab to get right and write the character's name. The other thing in my dealings with Final Draft, and I'm sure with a 5-minute tutorial I can figure it out, I don't like to be told what to do. And Final Draft seems to think it knows everything that you're thinking before you're thinking it. And I find the collaboration with the program very irritating. It's like, you don't know. I don't, yeah, so that, but I still, I'm a typist, so I still, yeah. It's bad for production.
It explains why so many scripts sort of feel like they're written by robots now that I think about it. Hey! No, I was being totally serious.
Well, I suppose, one of the joys of a script, or at least, an actor that I work with, Joaquin Phoenix, he says he always likes reading my scripts because the spelling is off and the punctuation. And part of the joy of that is to realize, he definitely wrote this. Somebody wrote this, and I think that it does. It's not correcting or capitalizing for you. It's funny because I think when you write a movie, dialogue, shouldn't read like sentences, you know, and oftentimes I'll write dialogue in lowercase, and I think one of the reasons for that is that you are trying to write it in a way that might help an actor understand some of the intention. Obviously, if you write something in capital letters, you're perhaps indicating that they're screaming, but if it's lowercase, you're kind of allowing them to decipher the material in their own way.
Andy, for you, I know that you worked previously with Paul on Phantom Thread and Inherent Vice, but this is your first, your first time in the big seat as the main editor. At what point did he sort of start talking to you about, or did he? Maybe he just surprised you with the script too.
Well, I've been working on these music videos over the years, so we do have a relationship cutting those, and we also cut a documentary together and this kind of larger format short for Netflix, Anima. So we had a rapport, and honestly though, it really wasn't. Everyone always asks me this, is like, was there like a big formal meeting where you sat me down and were like, so I want to see if you want to. It was kind of in passing, remember?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want to cut this one? And I was like, sure. That was it. That's kind of how it happens. But I've been part of the team for a while, and then, going back to the Microsoft Word thing, just like a correlation, Paul's way of working is very old-fashioned, as far as we watch dailies on film, and it's just that process is very old school, and it kind of goes the same way when you write your scripts, and writing stuff on a typewriter. It's going through the process and putting in the work, and so I don't know. I know the process of how Paul likes to make his movies, and so I think it works.
I love writing on Microsoft Word because it's free. So I did it for years, but I broke down and joined the cold recently, I'm afraid.
By the way, I shouldn't be saying Microsoft Word is the worst program. It is like so horrible, and I don't even understand 99.9% of how to do it. It just does what I need to do, quite simply. I mean, Andy and well, we won't get into this. If ever I have to update my computer, there's going to be a huge catastrophe because of the version of Microsoft Word.
Yeah, he only wants to use a certain version of Microsoft Word, like 97 or something.
I love that. You are editing on updated equipment.
That's going to go up and out of it over we already shared.
Andy's side of the room is very updated.
Like all your movies, music is such a huge part of the storytelling in Licorice Pizza. You have these amazing needle drops, throughout the movie. Can you talk about the conversations between the two of you about sort of where to place those, when to hold back, and also because you have this amazing original score by Johnny Greenwood,
Right.
When you want to use source music and original music.
Well, the overall plan that we had mapped out before was that there would only be one Johnny cue, and it would be at the beginning and at the end. And I let him know that early on, which is nice because it frees him up to do other things. So we knew that structure, and I gave Andy a chunk of the songs to put in the Avid. And that's one thing, he can listen to it. But the real moment when things start to happen is when we're watching dailies. You sort of hook the laptop or my phone up through the speakers, so you're watching dailies. And even when we were doing tests, if we would shot tests of Alana and Cooper walking through a hallway, you can play some music along with it, and it's helpful for Andy for sure, but you can't underestimate how helpful it is for the crew. We're out there doing it. He'll eventually he'll know, and he'll get more of a sense of the overall film, But when the dolly grip or anybody, the part of the team that really isn't actively involved in the editorial, to alert them to the kind of tone of the movie through music during dailies is so helpful. And then we try to do that a lot. We early on, probably within the first week, we were shooting the scene where Gary finds a waterbed, and he buys the waterbed, and we were we're trying different versions of that accentuate the positive, which is often used in films. It hasn't been used in a minute. There's a couple different versions out there, and it was fun to kind of go through that. We sort of look at each other and say, which do you like? And, you know, he'll sort of chime in with which one seems to fit at that moment. Because most of the times, maybe you're right about what works, but then when we really dig in together, you find that perhaps some of the ideas that you thought might work, you're deeper into the film and you're discovering that perhaps you need to adjust the plan a little bit, or perhaps something is removed and now you need to connect things in a different way. So the plan is pretty firm, but it changes.
Another thing that it was really fun to do was to find little things on the radio that we would put in cars or playing in the background or the TV in some of the different scenes, like Newlywed Game or whatever, or at backstage at the Drake Best show. Just anything that adds any sort of authenticity to the soundscape. That was, that was a lot of fun going through. It was a lot of those are really real old radio recordings from 1973.
Yeah, we started doing it. We got it. We did a little bit of it on Inherent Vice, but got more. There wasn't enough room for it really. Then we had more room for it, more room to play, and more kind of access to some more interesting material. We're always like, be so excited when we find some odd commercial that you can barely hear, but it has some weird sound effects or something like that in the background that helps subtly do something. I would give Andy a pile of it. He would generally just try to, find all the best bits, and that was always an exciting part of the day, coming back and, seeing what he found that worked.
What about choosing not to use sound or music? Because it was, I think, on my 7th or 8th viewing of the film, I could finally watch, not through my hands, the sequence with John Peters in the truck. And I realized there's actually very little sound in that. And it makes it even more unnerving and tense. And I'm sort of curious if it was always that way from the start, or if that was an idea you came up with to build the tension.
That was kind of always the idea. There's plenty of sound, there's just no music. Basically, the entire John Peters section is played completely dry, except for one little bit that we have at the gas station. You can hear someone's radio, but otherwise it's just sound effects throughout. And I think it actually makes it more intense.
I do remember one moment we were putting it together, and I had thought, this will probably be good, without any music, but maybe at one point, 3/4 of the way of putting it together, we were getting close. I said, well, I know it won't be right, but we could put, maybe we could play with putting something underneath here, and Andy just shook his head like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
It's a nice reprieve just to have a palate cleanser, and then we get on to the next episode.
It's a palate cleanser that is the most tense thing I've ever seen on screen. I guess it is a palate cleanser, and that it's definitely a shift. I'm actually curious, working with actors as experienced as Sean Penn and Bradley Cooper, who are so good in this film, and then people who have never I know Alana says she hasn't acted before, but I feel like as a musician, that's a performance. And
right.
Cooper, who had never acted before, do you have to adjust your directing style for actors, or is it kind of one size fits all?
Maybe a little bit, sure. Look, obviously, Sean Penn has been around film sets for 30 or 40 years. Bradley, 25 years. And Alana and Cooper are stepping on it for the first time, so there's nuts and bolts things about pacing themselves or understanding exactly who does what that perhaps you're helping guide them through. But when I really think about it, you'd kind of be shocked at how it does boil down to, it's all kind of the same thing. It's like, was that any good? Should I do it better? Should I do it slower? Should I do it faster? It really does, kind of the elemental ideas that you're after, whether you're Sean Penn or Alana, are the same. Funny enough, it's actually was, Sean Penn turned up, and we'd already been shooting, and that's a really hard thing. You're sort of stepping into an environment, no matter how much confidence you have or how you've done it, you go step into a thing, and you have 5 pages of dialogue that you have to do. You're not warmed up, you're kind of coming in cold, so it doesn't matter. You're stepping onto the wheel, and you wanna do good quickly. He's a great director as well too, so he knows the pressures of what's required and, you know, getting the shots within the day and all that kind of stuff, so. The answer is, it's hilariously, surprisingly, all kind of the same at the end of the day, like, you know,
Yeah.
do it again, we can do better, and then you get a good one. You know?
I'm actually curious, Andy, because you get to see all these takes in the editing room. How much are the performances in the movies really shaped in editing?
I mean, I think editing is the ultimate, final
You
shape.
say
It
it's
is.
true. Don't be shy.
No, not at all. But when we're watching dailies, you kind of see how the performances evolve.
Yeah.
That's like a big part of how he shoots. You kind of adjust technical things, lenses or lighting or whatever, but then you can also see how the performance is evolving. Especially with Gary, you can see that a lot. Like various things that Paul would say to Cooper, you could just finally see when it clicked, and then we knew, again, because we do these dailies and we're watching it together with a communal audience, we know, okay, these last 2 takes, these are the takes we're gonna use, and it accelerates our process when we start building the movie, because we've already narrowed down the best takes.
Yeah.
And by the end of the shoot, I mean, we know we have the movie,
Yeah.
because of this dialogue that we've been having, so.
Yeah.
And sometimes we reshoot stuff, that happens often. Not super often, but it does happen, and it's just part of the process. Because we're able to review it, and we can say, we can do better, we can change the script, we can change a little something, and then we nail it, so.
And I think I agree with Andy. Obviously, you can't underestimate how important it is to review everything that night that you've done the day before, because you're seeing that you have something, or at least hoping you're feeling good about it, confident enough, or you're exposing something that's not working, and it's really important to know if it's not working before everybody packs up and goes home, or you sort of put it on the back burner and you go, well, let's deal with this in a couple weeks when we get further down the schedule and see if we're still feeling how we're feeling about this. And the benefits of this are huge, especially when we, just to double what Andy said, when you sit down to put the movie together, you're not spending the time learning the takes and looking through all that material. You've done that work already, so you're just shaping a story. At least for a start, you have a base to work from, and that's invaluable. It gives us so much more time to sit back and work that way.
Because in other movies, sometimes the director has never really seen all the dailies. They've been there, but they saw it on, Video Village, but they really never saw it. So,
yeah,
Paul's seen it, and we both have seen it, and I review again after I watch on film, and we just know the footage, so it's invaluable.
I feel like making a movie is challenging enough, but you've chosen to make a period piece with 2 lead actors that haven't acted before during COVID. Many different set pieces, really sprawling ensemble. For each of you, what ended up being the biggest challenge of the film? Maybe there's a particular scene that you went back to again and again in the editing room. For you, it could be in the writing or the shooting.
Oh my God, I mean, you're never supposed to admit this, but everything was so joyful and wonderful.
No, tell me about the struggle.
I know one thing we can say. With the Tail of the Hawk sequence, that was probably editorial, that was our biggest struggle.
Really?
Because it was a lot longer, actually. And, we had a lot of great stuff, but we really had to distill it down to the essence.
Yeah.
And that episode kind of outweighed the other sections of the movie, and so we got through it. We started chopping it up, and really, I mean, we kind of made it this drunken mess in a way, and that made it work in a way that simplified it.
Yeah.
And so it really made it about this crazy interaction that they're having at the table, and then Gary and Alana looking at each other and this standoff.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if that's the biggest problem that we had, that was the most joyous problem to work through. But it was frustrating. There was a lot of material and many different areas to be bouncing back and forth between and to get that rhythm right.
It's better than the reverse of not having enough footage and trying to build something. At least we knew we could take stuff out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it was an amazingly joyous set, even though Alana was sure you were gonna fire her every day. And I don't like hearing that, I
You
know.
know, like, right, I was gonna fire her.
She said on the last day she felt pretty secure. I'm so sorry that we're already out of time. I have to ask everyone to stay seated because these gentlemen actually have to do be somewhere. Wow. And at the same time, they have to clean out this theater for the next screening. But I want to thank you guys for being a great audience. And again, congratulations on all the success of the movie. It's so, so special.
Thank you guys.